Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and welcome to the live stream. Thank you for joining us. In this live stream chat, I'd like to talk about how students in Western countries, white students in Western countries, are being encouraged, forcefully encouraged to only have non-white historical heroes. So let's have a look at that and see where it goes, and I think should raise concerns in your mind as much as it did mine. So some people that we know, and they're heavyweight lawyers, and they've got their children going to some of the most expensive high schools, private high schools in Australia, and I think this one's fifth or sixth most expensive, and has certainly over the years produced many intellectual heavyweights have come from their ranks. So, but anyway, we were over there one day and chatting, and the eldest son, who's in I think it's year 11 or 12 of this very expensive private high school, and they're doing an assignment on their heroes from history, and allegedly they can pick their own heroes, but it doesn't quite work out that way. So he had three heroes. Each student has to pick three heroes, and the three heroes that this kid picked, and it was really they've been shepherded into this by the teachers and the system, is Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, and Martin Luther King. So not a white face in sight. Now, fine if that's the kid's choice, but it's very clear again that they've been shepherded into making these choices. And I said, isn't there not a single white person throughout the entire history of the world that could have made it into his list? No, absolutely not. These are three heroes because they've done such wonderful good things, and so on and so forth. So I suggested some names that maybe in various areas of could be, for example, Isaac Newton, contribution to science and so on. Maybe some of the great white literary experts and writers and so on. What about the Bronte sisters as an example, Charles Dickens and so on? What about those? And politicians' terms, what about William Gladstone, Prime Minister of Britain in the 1880s? What about Abraham Lincoln, and so on? So I thought there would be quite a few white people that would be worth a look in, but no, and interestingly, each white person, or most of them, not all of them, Isaac Newton didn't even know who it was, but the most of the white people who I mentioned, he straight away came out with instant regurgitated talking points about why the white people were bad, and then went on. Winston Churchill was a fascist and a Nazi and a this and a that and just every white person. He had this stream of negative invective that obviously he'd been given in class, and he was just prepared to put down any white person, no matter what their achievements, prepared to put down any white person that I mentioned. Now, on the black people, or the black and brown people, and certainly the list of the heroes, he's had a completely sanitized, airbrushed, sanctified version of their achievements and their behaviour and activity and so on, and it was quite absurd because there are some howlers in the back. Nelson Mandela, for example, was an activist organising in a group that was setting off bombs and engaging in terrorist acts, killing lots of people and so on, but he knew nothing about this. He only knew the kind, avuncular, grandfather-looking Nelson Mandela, and that was the image, and the life before, the terrorism and the association with radical Marxist activist terror. No, didn't know anything about it. So I managed to get him to come to the computer and say, well, hey, have a look at this, and showed some examples of some of the things that, for example, Mandela had done, but his instant response was, well, that doesn't matter, because if he did those things, and he was still very dubious that it may be some wicked white plot to sort of, but if Mandela did do those things and was associated with those radical activist terrorist hooligans of the day, if he did do that, it was for a good reason. It's because the whites were even worse, and that made it okay if he did that, and so on. So he had this absurd one-sided view of history that was very anti-white, even though he's white, very anti-white, and saw the black and brown people as being godlike. In fact, he spoke almost in reverential terms of them, that they were demigods, and yet could provide no real basis for his views on that. Now, when I sort of asked, well, what about the other kids in the class? Do they have? And they're pretty much all picking the same people. In as far as he understood it, everyone had picked Gandhi and so on. And when I spoke a bit about Gandhi, I said, would you realise he was actually a lawyer? He came from quite a well-to-do family. He worked in the family's interests, or wider interests, in South Africa. He was actually a guy who had no purpose in life. He was wandering around aimlessly, wondering what he was going to do. Everything he tried hadn't really worked out. And so he decided to just protest against everything, because that's what people who have no purpose in life do. They just become anti-everything, and that gives them some sort of moral stature, or so they see it. Now, Gandhi happened to be well placed, historically, that the British were sort of working towards getting out of India. You had the Japanese in World War II were openly sort of saying, well, you don't need the colonial powers anymore. We'll be the colonial power, and we're other Asians, so that's a good thing. So there's all these things going into the melting pot, and Gandhi happened to land in the middle of that. But the things that Gandhi was associated with, and the things he did, the positions he took, and the attitudes he had, all of that was airbrushed out, and trying to explain to the kid, he just wouldn't have it. Gandhi was a god, and that's the end of it. Nothing to talk about. Whereas every white person is evil and dissolute and undeserving of any accolades at all, for whatever reason. So this is the sort of thing, and this is an expensive private school. This kid's going to be, and he's a bright enough kid in many ways. This kid's going to be the CEO of a major bank or financial corporation or whatever, in 25 years' time. Now, in the meantime, the light may go on, and he realised he's just been fed absolute hogwash. But why would any parent pay the big bucks, and it is big bucks, to send their children to a school that again, an expensive private school? And it's not a public school. It's not some government school with low IQ radical activist teachers running around. This is an expensive private school that can afford the very best teachers that are around, and yet they're still pushing this anti-white, pro-black-brown narrative. And goodness knows why they're doing it, and why the parents would allow it, or did the parents sort of know? I mean, the parents didn't seem to care. They say, oh, well, shrug their shoulders, and if that's how it is, that's how it is. And, we haven't got the time to get involved. We're busy people, and so on and so forth. So that's it. So that's allowed to stand. But certainly, if I was stumping up the big bucks to send my kids to a school like that, I'd have serious problems with this hysterical anti-white narrative that's being fed to the students. So imagine that, white students not being permitted to have a white hero. Now, if any white hero is mentioned or becomes a potential candidate, the teachers are clearly jumping all over it and discouraging the students by pointing out that these white people are, and whether it's accurate information or not, or carefully cherry-picked situations that they can portray the white person as evil. But the teacher jumping all over it and very hostile to any white people being in the hero list, and openly and actively discouraging the students from going down that path. So they're really going along with the path of least resistance, or some of them must be, and just taking these brown and black alleged heroes, who in my view are not heroes at all, or if they are heroes, certainly of very minimal stature. But that's my view, and that's my take. Please put your comments below. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.